What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dr. Medic channel. My name is Justin, and today we are out here in Park City, Utah, which is just east of Salt Lake City, Utah in the United States. And we're gonna check out this cool EC145 light helicopter, which is a part of the University of Utah's AirMed air ambulance program. They've got this aircraft, they've got some Bell 407s, they've got another EC145, they've got a Pilatus fixed wing. Hopefully we'll try to check them all out today. We'll stop by with some of their other bases maybe. We'll check out their hospital and their super cool landing pad. And if I'm lucky, we'll get to catch a flight as well. So stick around, stay tuned on this episode of the Dr. Medic, and we'll be right back. Welcome to beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah in the United States of America, home to the Great Salt Lake. Not only is that lake salty, it's also bigger than the state of Delaware. Now, Salt Lake City is home to the Utah Jazz NBA basketball team. Always love going to see a game at the Delta Center. And probably what Salt Lake City is most well known for is being the world headquarters for the Mormon Church. But sometimes people forget that Salt Lake City is one of the greatest, most centrally located places in the entire country for all things outdoors, whether it's skiing or snowmobiling or heading a couple hours south down to Moab. The skiing is absolutely amazing. You can spend an awful lot of money and just go 30 minutes east into Park City, where we're going to be today, and get some of the most famous skiing in the world. But if you really want something cool, you can go about an hour north. My favorite place is Powder Mountain, and in all honesty, it's probably the only place I've ever been to out here. They don't call it Powder Mountain for nothing. But on this trip, I was lucky enough to snag a couple of snowmobiles and head out east and go snowmobiling with my son in 3 or 4 foot of powder. Absolutely amazing, beautiful views. Love being out in nature and just tearing it up with my kid. Now, Salt Lake City was also home to the first Kentucky Fried Chicken, and even more importantly, was also where they filmed this scene from Dumb and Dumber.
Nice set of Hooters you got there.
I beg your pardon?
The owls, they're beautiful.
Okay, so you might remember, if you guys checked out that mental health retreat I did about a year ago with Chris Smetana from Mind the Frontline, where we went out to Moab. I did run into these guys back then, but the weather was really bad. We just didn't really have a chance to catch up. So it's been about a year. I'm super stoked to be back, and we're gonna check out all the cool things that they have here. So AirMed here in Utah, not just out here at Park City, but all across Salt Lake City, has been around since 1978. These guys are the absolute OGs of air ambulances in the United States. And back in the late 70s, most of you guys remember, and if you don't, air ambulances were still trying to kind of figure themselves out across the United States. What were they going to respond to? What were the education levels of the clinical folks who were on board? What kind of resources did they have? What kind of airframes did they fly? And the longer that somebody's been doing it, it's just like you or me doing clinical stuff, the more experienced and the more problems they would have figured out, right? So being around for that long, they've got a lot of stuff figured out. And just to put that into perspective, one of their medical directors, they've got like 6, but their main medical director has been here, I think, for almost half of the entire time that this service has been here. And that kind of speaks volumes to some of the history and even some of the positive traditions that this program has. So as I said, this service has got about 5 aircraft. They've got 5 helicopters, I believe, and 1 fixed wing with their Pilatus PC-12. Hopefully we'll get to check that thing out. But for a service that only has 5 aircraft, I find it awesome that they have 5 or 6 medical directors. They have their main medical director. This guy is super cool. He skis, he snowboards, he does all this cool stuff, but he's also an emergency medicine physician, is an academic faculty member for the University of Utah through their emergency medicine program that they have here. But there's also 4 or 5 assistant medical directors that go along with it, because the main medical director for most agencies typically is an emergency medicine person, right? And so they're really good at responding to the emergencies. But when it comes to, I think that's called a roof avalanche, when the stuff falls off the roof, that's what they say here in Utah. Anyway, they have these specialties for things like high-risk OB, your neonate transfers, your high expectation cardiac events such as Impellas and balloon pumps and ECMO, and they even have a wilderness medical director who is focused on their search and assist stuff, maybe some search and rescue, and maybe some of the patient care treatment stuff that they have to do in austere environments.
So then we took a sightseeing flight, and little did I know just how much that wilderness would come into play.
We're good in the back. Good, here we go. Coming up. Gorgeous day to fly. Oh yeah. Minus 11.2 degrees Celsius outside. So Justin, currently we're at 10,500 feet above sea level.
You can just hear how clear this pilot talks. This dude was super cool. He was from New Zealand. You can absolutely tell that this guy's got an amazing history. He loves his job. He loves this helicopter, and he's got a huge emphasis on safety. I would fly with this dude any day.
So we are heading towards, this is the Wasatch Range in front of us, the more central Wasatch. But this road we're over now is the most avalanche-prone roadway in the U.S.
Absolutely gorgeous. I really appreciate you guys.
Oh, yeah, very welcome.
Hey, we appreciate you. We get to fly.
This was probably one of the most beautiful flights I've ever taken in my life. It was very memorable. It was calm, it was chill, it was stress-free, and then the day suddenly changed in an instant.
Oh, go ahead.
Hey, can you please alert you for assistance with avalanche recovery? We'll see if you can land at the Power Birds helipad.
You guys good with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can accept that.
So you can hear that they were dispatched for an avalanche rescue and recovery, which was kind of cool because we were just 2 minutes away, so it didn't take us long to get there. But setting all of that dispatch information aside, you can tell by the communication between the nurse and the pilot and the paramedic and dispatch that just everybody's on the same page. Everybody has clear and concise communication, and they do so throughout the entire call, and it's just another thing that keeps everybody safe. We did an awful lot of landings and takeoffs on this day and during this operation, and every single one of them was exactly the same when it came to the communication and the expectations of safety and sterile cockpit and eyes out of the aircraft.
Here we go. Ready to land. Okay, good in the back. Good in the front. Eyes out.
I wasn't 100% sure what I was getting myself into here. I'm from Florida and Oklahoma, and if you don't know the geography there, we don't have a whole lot of avalanches. And you'll see as we're coming into this helipad here in this tiny little ski town that there's a helipad there, but the helipad is normally used for a ski helicopter that you would normally pay them to fly you to the top of the mountain so you can ski down on your own. But in this case, we're going to land up on the top pad, but the ski helicopter wasn't there because we were taking over the top pad, and on the second pad you can see is this beautiful A-Star AS-350, which was flown by Utah's Department of Public Safety. Once we got inside, this was a full incident command that took over this building, and it was a true emergency, and there were a lot of different specialties and agencies there, including local law enforcement, local sheriff, there was mountain rescue. I didn't even know that mountain rescue existed. I thought that was the same thing as ski patrol, but I guess it's different. You had ski patrol, you had, there was a dog, a beautiful, beautiful dog named OC. You can check out this dog right here. He's so cool, he's a black lab. Ain't he cute? What were we there for? We were there for several different things. What you see here is we were taking folks up. This first crew had to go up and kind of scout things out and make sure that it's safe for other rescuers to get in there. But it was absolutely amazing to see the interaction between the crews, between the flight crew that I was flying with, and then the rescuers that had their own mission to go up there and do a rescue and a recovery and search for somebody in an avalanche. But all along the way, it was absolutely zero egos, zero attitudes. Everybody had the same task-oriented mind at hand to accomplish whatever the operation was and to stay safe doing it. You know, and kind of heading up there at the same time, but a little bit before us, was this DPS crew. And like I said, they're with the Utah Department of Public Safety. And they actually went up with a group of bombardiers when I saw, like, they had a box of 19 avalanche explosives that they took up and actually dropped them out of the aircraft and caused maybe some smaller avalanches to ensure that when the rest of the crews were up there and then when we were landing, that there was no further risk of avalanche or anything like that, and everybody could just focus on the task at hand. And again, routine and cross-checks and checklists are important. Every single time we took off, the crew is walking by each other, doing their walk around, checking the outside of aircraft for obstructions, anything that could be open, doors that could be open, latches that could be open. Helicopter's been brought down because of a door comes loose and a sheet flies out or something like that. So it's super important to cross-check each other and ensure that everything's closed and locked up and ready to go.
Flight Center 18's on Iris. We're lifting out Snowbird, out of Powderbirds back up to the scene. 4 souls. Justin's with us. Give us 5 minutes up the hill. We've got an hour and 5 in the tank.
You know, man, emergencies like this are real, and everyone, from the rescue crews to law enforcement to the flight crew, you know, and even the pilot, they're physically, they're emotionally involved in incidents like this. And while I think it is important to highlight the teamwork, you know, and the operational success of something like this, the patient care aspect of it, I think, is better left for debriefing internally and privately. So, you know, out of respect for everybody that was involved in this operation, including the victim and the avalanche, I think I'll just sum up this operation by saying that, you know, what an honor it was to witness so many people with all the same collective goal of saving another human being's life, you know, in doing so with the highest level of skill and training and professionalism that I've probably ever seen in my entire life. And with that, the operation was completed. It's time to head home.
Chick's good. Roger.
Time to go home, boys. That's right.
Ready for landing, guys?
Ready for landing? Yes, sir.
Nice. We're steps on stabilized approach. Trains in sight. Sterile cockpit, please. Tails clear right. Eighteen's back at the house. Thanks for your help. I'll call you in a bit.
You know, with that operation complete, let's get back to learning about AirMed and this super cool helicopter.
So like I said, one of the things that kind of sets this program apart is their ability to have solved many of the problems that other flight services maybe are still working out or something like that. Because, you know, just where does the vent go? What should our protocol be? What should this be? How should we do these things? They've had a lot of time and investment on those things. And one of the ways that they do that is through their specialty committees.
And because AirMed has had so much time to figure out a lot of these problems, one of the things that they've been able to figure out is that a top-down approach is not always the best approach when it comes to figuring out how to set up an organization or solve problems. And at AirMed, they have pretty much a committee for everything. They have a safety committee, an RQI committee, one for education, one for equipment, one for best practices. And every one of the folks that's on these committees is then able to have buy-in so that everybody is on the same page and everything is treated the same at all of the different bases that they have.
Now, I said that they have 5 or 6 medical directors here, and sometimes that I think that can be a little bit deceiving, because when you think about medical directors, you think about being directed by a physician. And in the United States, that is our model, where medical directors create protocols or create some type of standing orders, and that is that's how paramedics and EMTs and all pre-hospital folks in the United States operate, right? Well, they do things a little bit differently here.
You know, far too often, ground and fire and even helicopter EMS agencies all across the United States create medical protocols for their paramedics and nurses that are sometimes so restrictive that it ends up limiting the clinician's ability to provide the best patient care. You know, and because of this, some agencies across the United States have drifted a bit away from these hardcore protocols or standing orders to move more towards what we call patient care guidelines. You know, and really the difference is that with patient care guidelines, the medical directors are giving the paramedics and nurses more leeway and more autonomy to utilize their own critical thinking skills in order to make the best clinical decisions. But with patient care guidelines comes a high expectation of education, trust, and professionalism of the med crews, and that is exactly what you have here at AirMed. You have a tight-knit group of specialized medical directors who have created very broad, yet also very extensive patient care guidelines with the expectation that their nurses and their paramedics will stay within their scope of practice and keep their medical directors informed, all with the collective goal of providing the very best patient care possible.
A lot of times people ask me, you know, what do you think is, what do you think, Justin? What do you think is one of the best ways to improve employee engagement at an EMS agency, whether it be a helicopter service like this or on the ground? And typically one of the things that I tell them is you can't have tired and angry personnel working at your agency.
Anybody who knows me knows that I am a huge advocate for getting away from 24-hour shifts. And while they can do 24-hour shifts here at AirMed, all of the shifts are 12 hours. Sometimes, yes, they do 2 12s in a row to make up a 24, but their minimum required shift time for the week for full-time paramedics and nurses is 36 hours. And having that 36 hours allows them to focus some of their other time during the week towards education, towards training, but also towards their personal lives. Because when people work multiple 24-hour shifts a week in an environment that is this high stress and dynamic, this is where you end up getting people who are burnt out, that are stressed out, that have nutrition problems, that have medical problems, and they start not enjoying their job. And when they don't enjoy their job, they become complacent. There's elevated safety risks that occur. And more importantly, with everything, patient care will eventually start to drop because people just don't like their jobs. You know, being a flight paramedic or a flight nurse is a fatiguing job, and maximizing your hours is not always the best way to work as a flight paramedic or a flight nurse. You know, and I think AirMed agrees, and that's why 36 hours is their minimum hours for full-time paramedics and full-time nurses.
Now, again, what comes with time is learning and stuff like that. And obviously they've got this beautiful EC145 that's sitting right here behind me, but it didn't start that way.
You know, when they got started back in the late 70s, AirMed was flying a very small fleet of just 3 aircraft, which were Bell 206s. And then they eventually moved into the super cool Bell 222s, and then moved out of that into the Bell 430. And now is where they have kind of the mixture of Bell 407s and EC145s. But I do believe that they are on their way of phasing out the Bell 407s and having an entire fleet of EC145s for their rotor wing group. But back in the early 90s, they also started flying fixed wing shifts because Salt Lake City is kind of isolated out here in the western part of the United States. And if I'm not mistaken, AirMed has one of the largest geographical coverage areas of any air ambulance service in the entire country. And so it only makes sense that they were able to pick up a fixed wing service to fly their patients on their longer flights anywhere really in the western part of the United States. And they started that with this cool Mitsubishi MU-2, which is a super cool aircraft, but then eventually they moved into the super high-tech and super safe PC-12 fixed-wing aircraft back in, I think, 1999, and they've been utilizing that as their fixed-wing aircraft ever since. You know, and that PC-12 is based out of the Salt Lake City airport where they have their own hangar and is staffed with a pilot, a paramedic, and a registered nurse. But then over on the eastern side of the city, they have a 145 that's actually based at the University of Utah's Trauma Center. And this is where they have their super cool perinatal team, which is actually made up of 3 providers with a highly specialized OB nurse for high-risk OB calls, a neonatal nurse, and a registered respiratory therapist. And you're really only going to be able to put an isolet and 3 providers into an aircraft that's as big as the EC145. But their other bases are going to be way out on the southwest side of the city in Tooele City. there's going to be a Bell 407 that has a nurse and a paramedic on board that aircraft. They also have another Bell 407 on the northwest side of the city in a city called Davis, also staffed with a registered nurse and a paramedic. They have this base here in Park City, which is east of Salt Lake City, which obviously is staffed with this paramedic and nurse that I rode with today. But then they have another one in Wyoming. And yes, they do have this other base out here in Rock Springs, Wyoming, which is about a 3-hour drive away from Salt Lake City. And they do have a Bell 407 there, again, with another registered nurse and paramedic. But most of the registered nurses and paramedics that are on that aircraft are actually based out of the Salt Lake City area. So first you would say, why would they have this other base that's all the way out there? And it's because they have a hospital partnership with that specific hospital that's in Wyoming. And a lot of the physicians who are in the ER at that hospital out in Wyoming are actually University of Utah emergency department physicians. And it just helps their relationship to be able to get people from the middle of nowhere out there in Rock Springs, Wyoming, and get them into the tertiary care center in Salt Lake City for all of the specialty care that people might need. And so yes, I did say that the paramedics and the nurses are pretty much based out of Salt Lake City. Well, how does that work? Well, that's one of the really cool things about AirMed is that nobody is permanently stationed at any of these bases. Those of you that work as flight paramedics and flight nurses across the country, or even if you're a firefighter and you're used to working at one station, you know that you can become very siloed and very segmented into your little world of where your station is. And sometimes that can create safety issues by not knowing the geography, not knowing the weather patterns, not knowing the people who you're working with on the ground. And so instead of assigning people to all these different bases, everybody signs up for different shifts at different bases. And its expectation is that everybody is going to work an equal amount of shifts in Tooele City, in Davis, in Wyoming, at Park City. And the purpose of all that is so that their nurses and their paramedics are all very well versed in all of the aircraft. They have 3 different aircraft, right? They have a fixed wing, they have the 407, they have the 145, and they want everybody to be equally well versed and comfortable in all of the aircraft.
I gotta take this jazz jacket off, man. I'm cold as shit. How's that look? Good? Collar's good? Whew, I feel better. I don't look good in purple anyway. Okay, so let's take a look at this aircraft. We're gonna do a quick walk around, then we'll jump inside and check out all the cool stuff inside as well.
And AirMed did have a pretty long relationship with Air Methods as their operator, which they're based out of Colorado. But about 7 or 8 years ago, they did switch over to Metro Aviation out of Shreveport, Louisiana as their Part 135 operator. And it seems like that relationship is working out pretty well. You can check out some of my other videos where I talk a little bit more in depth about Metro Aviation and how they operate. But one of the cool things that I always like to point out about Metro Aviation is they are 100% focused on the aviation. They provide the pilots, they provide the aircraft, they provide the mechanics, and they kind of stay out of the medical world and leave that up to whoever their customer is, in this case, AirMed.
This is an EC145E light, which is an Airbus BK117C2e model. So what does that mean? It basically means that the automatic flight control system has been removed from this aircraft to save a bunch of weight.
And it has been replaced by a 2-axis autopilot system with the Helisas Genesis system. Now the Helisas is still a fully certified IFR system and it's super awesome, but it saves some weight by installing it, which will just add to the performance of this aircraft.
One of the common themes that you're going to see when you look out here, I just look out over the camera and I look off in the distance, and those mountains there, they're 11, 12, 13,000 feet in altitude, and where we're sitting right now is about 6,400 feet. And then down in the valley where Salt Lake City is, I think is somewhere around 4,600 feet. So the lowest they're ever going to fly is at 4,600 feet. And then you add in altitude density and the calculations that go with it. This aircraft is always flying at a much higher, at least a density altitude than where I'm from in Oklahoma or something like that, or most of the helicopters that are along the East Coast. And so why does that matter? It matters because weight means a lot to this aircraft, especially in the summer. It probably doesn't mean much right now because as you can see, looking out over this tundra, it's like -5 degrees right now. And so they have all the power and all the weight that they could possibly need. But in the summertime, it absolutely matters. We're here at 6,400 feet. The top of some of the slopes, we have Park City that's right around the corner. One of the world famous slopes, going to be in the Olympics 10 years from now, and was in the Olympics, 22 years ago in 2002, I believe. But anyway, the the highest peak up there on Park City is about 10,000 feet, but some of the other peaks where hikers could get stuck, or maybe somebody's skiing who's not on one of the actual slopes and they've gone out of the park, or off the main trails, those things could be 11, 12, 13,000 foot high, and this aircraft still has to be able to get up and navigate up to those peaks and still have the power to do it. This is a very, very high performing aircraft, and by making it an E-Lite model, it makes the performance even higher. Okay, and so obviously at the front of the aircraft, you would normally see a weather radar here. It's not here. This aircraft is about performance. The weight savings of getting rid of that weather radar is just going to make this aircraft perform even better. Then down below, we have our wire strike system. There's one on the bottom, one on the top. Some people will say, has that thing ever actually worked? And it has worked. I think there was a video somewhere over the Middle East where there was some either guy wires, or it might have been a zip line wire. I can't remember what it was, but it was an EC145, and it clipped those wires and cut the wires, and the aircraft didn't crash. As we move our way around to the side, we have this air duct here. Now, I'm not 100% sure what that goes to, if that goes to ventilation or not, but that is officially called a NACA air duct, which is a very, very cool way of sucking in air into something without adding to the wind resistance. First place I saw that, I think, was on the F40, the Ferrari F40, when that came out in 1987. I think I'll throw a picture up. I swear to God, it's a NACA air duct, super cool. Okay, at the front of the skids right here, this is actually also a part of the wire strike system that you see sitting right here. It just is one more added benefit, where the tip of this goes a little bit higher on the bottom skid than the top skid, and it helps to keep a power line. If it went underneath the front wire strike system, it would keep it from going into those skids right there. Okay, moving around to the side over here, we see where it says no step. They have this added tank cover that's on here, and this is where they keep their oxygen. The oxygen on this aircraft does not use liquid oxygen. It uses compressed oxygen that's in actual tanks. There's one here, there's one on the other side, and I think they actually also have two D tanks that the med crew can use on the inside. On the back of the skids, obviously they might have to land in several feet of snow, and so they have these pads that are on the back of every one of their aircraft for weight distribution, and spreads the weight out a little bit more. So one more added safety benefit. Okay, and in keeping with Metro Aviation and kind of some of their standardization stuff, I love these orange things that go around these handles. If it's dark, or if there's an emergency, or if they're a firefighter or somebody has to get somebody out of this, it's just one more added benefit to say, well, this is how you get in the aircraft. It's not like a car door where you just know where the door handle is. I mean, it is a helicopter, and you see the orange, that's the door handle. Okay, moving along to the side over here, we've obviously got our jump cart right here, which is kind of like a shoreline, but it also has a battery power to help, kind of jumpstart the aircraft. Super cool system that they have here, so that if the pilot is up front and doing systems checks or something like that, and the entire flight control system is turned on and the pilot is actually doing something, and you unplug this, it's pretty cool. The system will actually automatically kick over to the batteries, which are actually sitting right up here over my head, without shutting off the system, like, oops, I unplugged the TV. It knows that you're doing something, and so it switches it over to the batteries. Super cool technology. Okay, and right below that shore power line, or that external power line, is going to be their Tannis preheater system. I do believe that the pads that come out from that Tannis heater system go to the oil tanks for both engines, as well as multiple places back with the back tail rotor, as well as somewhere on the gearbox as well. And so, the temperatures are cold. It's cold as balls right now, man. It's like -5 degrees here or something. My hands are freezing. I can't even feel my fingertips. But they've got to do everything that they can to keep this aircraft in safe working conditions. And the amount of money that it takes to cover this aircraft when it's in freezing precipitation is an exorbitant amount of money. I saw all of their rotor blade covers and their aircraft covers that they put on, and it's a huge investment, so that you don't come out here and have to worry about icing on the rotors, or icing on the tail rotors, or ice getting into the engine inlets or the exhaust ports or something like that. Another big investment. And then right above my head right here is just one of the Turbo Mecha Ariel 1E2 engines. These are basically the same engines that are in some of the A-Star, but there's two of them. And so I think this one puts out about 750, 780 horsepower. But again, there's two of them, so a little over 1,500 horsepower. And the redundancy, the power, the efficiency is super awesome in a twin engine aircraft like this. Okay, you guys have heard me talk about this before in this channel related to task overload and situational awareness and getting stressed out because of getting tunnel vision or something like that. Well, one of the big things that helps with that at this agency is having this extra seat over here. So just one more added safety benefit of an EC145 is that it's got two seats up front. This is a single pilot IFR aircraft, and so the pilot sits over on the right. But at this particular agency, one of the med crew is going to sit over here in the left seat. Now on this particular aircraft, they do have the controls removed just as an added safety feature so that nobody bumps into the collective or the cyclic or anything like that. But having that other med crew member over here plays a huge role in preventing task overload for the pilot, because the pilot's got to like fly the aircraft, right? And this is a complex aircraft and there's a lot of systems on it. And since one of the med crew can sit over here, they can control some of the radios, they can help with some of the GPS coordinates possibly, but probably one of the biggest things that they can do is they're just an added set of eyes for this entire side of the aircraft, and it is an absolutely huge safety benefit. And just taking a look at the avionics for the EC145E, it's got this beautiful glass cockpit with a Garmin 500H and a GTN navigation system. And you can see the Genesis Helisas 2-axis autopilot system over here to the right, which is pretty neat that it's up front and right in front of the pilot instead of down in front of the collective like it is on a lot of other aircraft. Just makes it a lot easier to get to, I'm sure. But this particular EC145, it's got 5 seats in it, but an EC145 without a medical interior can really seat up to 11. This particular 145E, I believe, has a maximum takeoff weight of just over 7,900 pounds, which in this configuration allows it to carry somewhere between 800 and 900 pounds of EMS equipment alone. This aircraft has a range of about 370 nautical miles, and it has a maximum endurance, I think, of about 3 hours and 45 minutes, and a maximum operating altitude of almost 18,000 feet, which again makes it perfectly suitable to be up here in the mountains. Oh, and looking back here at the left horizontal stabilizer, free t-shirt alert. So if anybody can tell me what is unique about the left side of the horizontal stabilizer on this aircraft, specifically the name for what it is that's unique, you'll definitely get a free t-shirt. So make sure you put the answer in the comments below and put hashtag t-shirt, one word, TEESHIRT, hashtag t-shirt, and put the answer there. And the first person that gets it, I'll send you a free t-shirt and maybe a little care package. Okay, so jumping into the back of the aircraft here, every time I get into an EC145, I am absolutely amazed at how much room there is in the back of this aircraft. Okay, so starting up here at the top, one of the things that I love up here is that there's this checklist up here before takeoff, before landing, just a quick reminder about doing a walk around, making sure your seatbelts are good, making sure you have flotation devices. They do fly over some big lakes here, and so they've got to have their personal flotation devices if they need them. So one added measure of safety right there. There's lots of different lighting options in here. This one right here I always love because we can turn it on and control the brightness of it, but it can be blue, green, or red, or white. Remember that white is not going to be good for night vision goggle operations. And in case you did not know how to get outside, there's the exit. Moving along up here to the top is going to be their comms. They can both reach it from both of these seats. The pilot's going to control most of this stuff here, but they have the ability to speak to people through an 800 megahertz radio, through VHF radio, and through a satellite phone system that's built into their communication system, as well as their ICS or their intercom system, which is just isolated here to the actual aircraft. But the med crew back here have to be able to speak to the receiving hospital. They have to be able to speak to ground personnel, law enforcement, or fire or EMS who's on the ground and setting up an LZ. And so they do all of that through this communications panel up here. Above that is going to be another light. I don't think that that's a night vision goggle compliant light, but that's a big bright light. And then they have multiple ventilation ports up here. And speaking of ventilators, this is going to be their Hamilton T1 vent, one of the best vents on the market, if not the best ventilator on the market. It's already kind of pre-set up with some tubing going here. Wonderful machine right there. Down below the vent, there's going to be some storage in here related to some tie-down stuff that the pilot uses. So that's really just for the pilot. That's why it says pilot use only. And then down below is going to be where they have their wonderful portable suction device. They've got some other extra tubing in here, as well as their fluid warmer, which, you know, since it's -5 degrees outside, I'm thinking about applying this to myself right now. Both of the seats back here are going to have these 4-point harnesses, which are great because they give you the support from 4 different points, but also just a quick turn of the buckle and they can be released and get out of those very, very quickly. This is going to be their radio connection where they can connect into their helmet and in their radio system, which is incorporated into their helmet, and they just plug into here. And this basically controls whether or not this is going to be voice activated, push to talk, or they can lock it in one of the modes as well. And they can clip this anywhere to kind of keep it out of the way. Moving over here to the back of the stretcher, they've got some good stuff right here. We don't have the burrito sitting on here, but because it's so cold outside, they leave some of their equipment inside and take it out when they actually catch a flight. But your patient would normally be wrapped up in their burrito, which is wonderful to control not only temperature, but fluid control as well. So then moving over here, this device, I've actually never seen this before. You know, obviously doing critical care paramedicine, IV pumps and tubing, it plays a huge role in what you do in trying to keep that organized and make sure that everything's functioning the way that it should. And at this agency, at AirMed, they use the sapphire pumps, which are super cool because you can kind of isolate them and separate them. But this is a neat little device where they can put the sapphires in there. I'm not sure how many can go in there. Probably at least 3, 4, or 5 of them can go in there. And then they're all secured in one spot. But you can also take them and always just hook them to carabiners as long as they're secured. Remember, everything in the back of the aircraft needs to be secured. Then moving up above, we have some of the same panels. This is obviously a Metro Aviation built out EC145, so it's going to look very similar to some of the other Metro Aviation ones that you might have seen at some other places, but some things are unique. And so moving up here, we can see the oxygen device. This is just going to be your typical controlled flow through this little Christmas tree guy here. And that's what you might set something on 2 liters or 6 liters or something for a nasal cannula, or going higher to 12, 15 or something like that for a non-rebreather mask, or blasting it to 15 or 25 if you have a bag valve mask or something like that. And that's going to go through this little Christmas tree right here. The port next to it is technically a high flow. It's going to bypass any regulator that you might have, but I doubt they would use that because they have a quick port over here, and there's a quick, if you have a quick connect port, you just connect it straight here and it's going to do the same thing as opposed to trying to screw it on here with a hex tool or something like that. And so the next that is going to be their suction device. It's going to be powered on right here with this button, and they can control the flow of the suction here, which then comes out this vacuum tube. And so it's going to be sucked out of here, out of this container, which another hose then connects right here to this port, which is going to get hooked to the actual suction device that's going to go into the patient's mouth or into their airway or into their tube. And then all of the contents will go into this container. Moving next to that is going to be their medical air. You know, really that's only going to be used mostly for neonatal transfers. They're not really doing that on this particular air ambulance. On their other 145 that's kept over at the hospital, they probably use that a lot because they have a perinatal team over there that transfers a lot of little guys. Then below that, look how clean this looks. Look how small that Zoll looks without all the bags and stuff connected to it. They prefer to just keep everything connected like this, which is nice. It's very clean. It's very contained, but this is your standard Zoll X Series monitor. It's pretty cool because this one also has the added options of temperature monitoring and advanced waveform monitoring, like arterial lines and stuff like that. And hanging in the bag next to it is just going to be some of the extra supplies, some of the connectors and the small SpO2 sensors, as well as maybe end-tidal CO2 sensors and some extra stickers. And then kind of moving over here to the back is just a small storage for some extra masks they might have right there. And then again, the same thing over here on the other side. Moving around here behind me, you're going to see the personal flotation device. They don't have to wear them on every flight, I don't think. But if they're going to be flying over water, this is definitely a must. Then up here behind the seat is going to be their convenience bags and some hearing protection for the patient. I guess if they have another rider, they could also use that hearing protection, but that stuff is located right here. Next to that is going to be more ports, more USB ports, more 110 volts, which is great. It's always great to have quick access to power and charging capabilities. Then located below that is going to be this sharps container. They've got multiple sets of gloves that are already kind of pre-labeled over here in this side compartment. They've got more biohazard bags, some tape, a good little quick SpO2 sensor. And then hanging up right here, I love this. Every agency has a different way of labeling their drugs when they're doing like a complex procedure. When you're doing RSI or DSI, some type of paralytic induced intubation, you're giving a lot of meds. I mean, you could be giving rock and sux and etomidate and ketamine and Versed and maybe lidocaine, maybe fentanyl. You could be giving all of those together in some form of concoction or different regiment or something like that. When you pull them all up, it doesn't take long to get confused on which syringe is filled with which medication. So different people do different things. I used to take the tape, and put it on my leg and kind of write things in order, like as 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'd put that 1, 2, 3, 4 on the actual syringe. Or you could label the syringe with a Sharpie, or you could make your own stickers out of tape and put those on the actual syringes themselves. But there are some pre-made stickers, and that's pretty cool. You see ketamine here, etomidate, rocuronium, midazolam, which is Versed, and then sux. And so they can quickly write that down on there, how much, what's the volume, what's the mass, and then stick that onto the syringe so that nobody gets confused when you actually go to initiate the procedure. Up here, we've got some more buttons that's going to control the suction and oxygen and med air. This is the same exact panel that's over on the other side. And so they don't really use this one much. They kind of defer to the other side or to the pilot because they have all the same controls up front. And then over here to the side are going to be these tiny little pouches, which are always great. They're going to be filled with all the different syringes, safety needles, so that they can draw up medications, as well as a million flushes down here. And in case you were thinking of smoking on this aircraft, you cannot smoke on this aircraft. Okay, and then sitting over here behind the pilot is just a little bit of extra storage. You're going to see one of their night vision goggle bags right here. What does everybody call this? Tell me in the comments below, what do you call this? Do you call it a can? Do you call it a tin? Do you call it a nightmare? Would you call it a clipboard? What is this thing? Everybody's got a different name for it. Okay, and then back here are the awesome clamshell doors. Okay, and then so sitting back here in the back, again, this is what makes this aircraft, at least from the clinical standpoint, just so awesome that you'd be able to have this access at the back. So let's jump in and see what kind of stuff is in the back here. Now, obviously, they've got this Striker stretcher in here. It's not a power cot, but a power cot weighs an awful lot more than a manual cot. And having a manual cot in here is perfectly fine. Again, it reduces weight and just adds to the performance of the aircraft. But remember that this stretcher is the exact same stretcher that could be in just about any ambulance, and so paramedics are already used to it. It's easy to load, it's very safe, and it's very, very efficient. Okay, back here over to the side, you're gonna see there's gonna be more 110 outlets. We love having 110 outlets. There's another quick port for oxygen, another quick port for medical air that they probably are never gonna use. Their main med bag would normally be stored right here and strapped down with their burrito, but like I said, it's inside right now because it's -8 degrees out here and I'm about to freeze to death. These two bags over here are kind of going to be like some overflow supplies, so if they run a code or something like that, they've got more supplies in here to be able to kind of restock. Okay, and so in this case right here, every aircraft is going to have some type of survival kit, and they do have a survival kit up top, but in here, they actually have like a super survival kit. So not only does their survival kit also include things like blankets and some nutrition and stuff like that, they also have snowshoes, a shovel, and these super cool snow walking sticks. Another fire extinguisher right here. Here's another one of their portable D-tanks. And probably the most important thing of all is that they have a first aid kit. And remember, I told you that their medical director is an academic and is one of the faculty members for the emergency medicine residency program at the University of Utah. And with that comes riding emergency medicine residents on the helicopter, physicians who are doing their fellowship, all of them riding as third riders, which just adds to better patient care. But AirMed also participates in their own research. They do several multi-center trials as we speak right now. They've participated in the STAMP trials that were with TXA. They participated in the famous Siren studies, and they are absolutely pushing the limits when it comes to things like out-of-hospital ECMO treatment.
And so if patients who go into cardiac arrest in the field meet the criteria for being on ECMO, this is one of the few helicopters in the United States that will actually transport a patient in cardiac arrest and do CPR in the back of the aircraft, because their system is set up so well that the patient can be cannulated and on ECMO in the ER in just a few minutes. And in fact, they recently had an ECMO call where the time from 911 call of a cardiac arrest to the patient being cannulated and on ECMO in the emergency room, including the time it took to be transported by their helicopter, was just 37 minutes. Dude, research matters. Research is cool. Visit the website, get a t-shirt.
All right, and so it goes for air ambulances. I came here today to check out this AirMed ambulance from the University of Utah, do a cool spotlight, check out the stuff, and check out everything cool that they do, and maybe fly around and do a PR flight or two with them. And it ended up being an all-day, multi-agency avalanche rescue and recovery. I mean, there's no possible way in the world you could have planned for something like that. I cannot overemphasize how impressed I am with the level of public safety collaboration between the local law enforcement, the local search and rescue, AirMed, all of the ski patrol that we dealt with today, and even there was a physician that was there, an emergency medicine physician with the University of Utah, who showed up and played a big role. Absolute professionalism the entire day. The task at hand, find the person that we were looking for, treat the person the way that they needed to be treated, be safe about it, communicate, be team players, and all of that happened. And it's just one more example of AirMed and how they expect to run their service. They have a clinical excellence. They have a high level of expectation of professionalism. When it comes to the pilots and the mechanics, it's all about safety and redundancy and as much performance out of the aircraft that they can possibly get. I mean, look at that. How badass that aircraft is. It's safe, it's fast, it's powerful, it's efficient, it's redundant. I mean, these are all the things that you want in an air ambulance. It's just absolutely amazing. To say that I'm stoked would be an absolute understatement of the year. Super happy to be here. Very, very welcoming. Everybody was super professional and super polite and super nice to me. I could not possibly have asked for more. If you have a cool air ambulance, a cool helicopter, fire truck, or something like that that you want me to come check out, just hit me up in the comments below. Send me an email, call me, text me, hit me up on social media, whatever it is you want to do. But either way, I love coming out and spotlighting just the absolute premier type of programs like this that just push the safety and the professionalism expectations to the absolute limit. It's absolutely awesome. But either way, hit me up if you do have something for me to come check out. But until then, we'll see you guys on the next episode. Say something nice to somebody today, hug your kid, and we'll see you on the next episode.